Mr. Rob Allan, here
Hello.
at Avid Music MESSE.
How are you doing?
It's been a while since we chatted. I remember
Yeah.
we talked about the kind of state of the live consoles of technology, and things have moved on a bit, right?
Oh yeah, we're just doing some amazing stuff at the moment. Yeah, we're working really hard on making live consoles soft, and we're making our consoles so that you can program it to kind of pretty much do anything you need it to do. So, like in the first generation of digital consoles that Avid made, things were still hard. You would still have switches that did specific things. You would still have encoders that did specific things in the way that you would with an analog desk. And now we've made every fader and every knob soft, so that whatever I choose to do, the desk itself can
Sort of reconfigures itself.
depending on whether I'm choosing an EQ or I'm choosing a dynamic or I'm choosing a plug-in. The desk will just reconfigure itself, and each knob will do the job specifically that it has to do at that point. It's not fixed, everything is soft. And that enables us to do all kinds of things. It enables us to program, well, of course, interaction with Pro Tools. So we have a Pro Tools transport, right? Yeah. I'm playing back Pro Tools, a multi-track through here. I'm controlling every input.
I guess that's virtual sound check.
That's virtual sound check, yeah. And then of course here, nowadays I'm using LTC, running my snapshots of timecode. Because I have total integration with Pro Tools, I can just call up another song and we go straight to that song.
So this is right. So this is pulling it up from the actual
session.
host computer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, this is a young band from LIPA in Liverpool. It's the student band. We went up, spent a few days with them and recorded the session, been a nice video edit for them, so they can have it as their show reel. And for us, it means we can have some nice fresh material for demos, trade shows, right? And of course, they teach audio engineering there. So we had a great couple of days with the guys working on the desk.
So right. I mean, this. It's very, I mean, the reconfigurability, I mean, this is sort of something that we presumably could have only really dreamed about, not that long ago, because I'm guessing it's not for the budget conscious so much, but, because all of these displays are going to cost a bit. But, yeah. I mean, the flexibility must be astonishing.
I wanted to show you this one. This is one of my favorite ones. So, I got my fader muted. I can push the fader up and it unmutes.
Broadcast style.
Yeah. Broadcast style, exactly, and stop, they call it. Up here, I'm using this aux. Imagine I was using this aux to feed a speaker in the theatre. So I'm going to fade up. The aux is in post fade until I get to 0 dB. At which point it jumps to pre-fade, so it can't get any louder. But I can still push up the fader further on the PA system. And then when I pull it back down under 0, it goes back to post fade for the fade down and mute.
Right. Wow, so I mean the level of and complexity now of configuration is just...
Yeah, so I can program, that's an event. I program the desk so that when the fader goes above 0, the aux send goes from pre to post, from post to pre and back again. So I can use any point. I can use a meter, I can use a fader movement, I can use an EQ change to trigger anything else on the desk. So another one of my favorite ones is this one. Here's my guitar channel. Okay, it's the guitar solo. I'm going to push up the fader and then watch what happens to the EQ. It's a guitar solo, I push the fader up, gives myself a little bit high mid boost for the solo. I pull it back down for rhythm and it flattens it out. So guitar solo, pushing up and then flatten it off for the rhythm guitar.
So you can program that whole kind of cue and move into a single sort of physical action.
Exactly, so I can trigger stuff. I have triggers in action, so I can make any trigger, anything that I do on the desk be a trigger, and any other thing on the desk be an action. So the only limitation really is the imagination that you have to program this stuff.
And is that, I mean, because this presumably is still the same setup as living on the host computer, or is there dedicated DSP racks that's running this stuff? I mean, how does the...
Okay, so the desk has the console, and then the engine. The engine has the brain in it.
Right.
Okay. The difference between this and our older desk, the Profile, for example, is the DSP on this desk only does the plugins. Right. There's a thing called an RTX engine, which does the channels, which does the patching, which does the EQ, the compression and stuff. So we've separated the DSP engine from the processing of the desk, and it's by a company called it's called RTX, and basically it's a 16-core i7.
Right, and that just gives and that
we use that at the kernel level with minimal latency, and that just does all of the channel processing, all of the patching, all of that stuff, and then it frees up the DSP for plugins. That gives us the huge channel count. We have a look here. We've got 192 inputs, and at the same time we've got 96 buses and 24 matrix, LCR, all available all of the time, running 96K 48-bit. So it's a huge amount of processing going on within that machine. Compared to early digital days, it's insane, right?
I mean, it is crazy, and I guess. So, in terms of configurability, I mean, is this something that is now? I mean, you do front of house work yourself. I mean, is this stuff that you're actually using in the field?
It's all stuff I use in the field, yeah. So it's all stuff that I programmed in the field, literally in fields this summer. I mixed Massive Attack, so we were in a bunch of fields this summer. So yeah, it's all. There was 4 people on the design team of this desk, and 2 of us, me and a guy called Rob Scoville, are old roadies, I guess you would say, or experienced engineers. We're both in our 50s, we've both mixed bands since the 70s, and so a lot of the design stuff on this desk comes from field experience. They're not abstract concepts, it's the things that Rob and I want to do when we're making shows. He's currently out mixing Tom Petty.
I mean, it's a very specific skill set and kind of set of functions that you need for front of house. I mean, one of the things I'm sure you must come up against is ultimately, you know, everybody gets quite conservative when you're in front of a big show and there's a lot at stake. I mean, how do you find people who are adopting and kind of, adopting these new features? Do you have to twist their arms and go, no, look, it really does, and show them, or are they just going,
I think when you realise the scope that you have, that thing where if I want 4 things to happen at the same time, I only actually need to do one thing, which is push the fader up or pull the fader down or unmute the channel, and all of those things will happen for me. And rather than me running around trying to do all of them at the same time, I can actually just be calm and let a lot of the stuff be programmed in advance, and then I can just focus on the audio and I can focus on the mix. So I'm mixing Massive Attack. It's massively a complicated show, 11 different singers. So I don't want to have to remember to mute and unmute channels and, all of the different effects that I have. I have a lot of that programmed to code. So I can just let that happen. I'm confident that that's going to happen. And I can just focus on making sure that the mix is as good as it can be, that the audio is doing what it should do.
And again, I mean, this is a small footprint. I mean, is this it? I mean, do they get bigger than this? I mean, it seems like
this is
tiny.
This is a 24 fader version. The concept is you make the faders come to the engineer, right? So I can program custom layouts that jump up onto the desk by touching a button, or they can be controlled by a snapshot. So in Massive Attack, I have my layout changes with every song and with every part of a song, and I bring up to me the faders that I need to mix. So I'm not looking for the faders. The faders come to the engineer.
You don't need the physical side. Yeah,
I don't need. Actually, if we had a 10 fader desk, I would use that. I've only got 10 fingers. I don't need to see all my faders. I've got 340 faders. If they were all laid out, they'd need to be like 100 meters wide.
You need some sort of bungee arrangement.
Yeah, or a little monocycle or something like that, right? So it's a question of saying, let's bring the fader, let's bring the parameter to the engineer rather than have the engineer have to think and look and dive down.
And is that the kind of approach you took? I mean, you say you had a lot to input into the design of this as well. I mean, is that, I guess, all of that experience and the making things easy and natural to do? I mean, is that what you've tried to put in here?
It's all about, for me, mixing live sound is all about being able to get to the parameter you need to get to quickly. And people go, it was so much quicker on analog. But it wasn't. You'd have to find the channel and you'd have to go up to get to the right knob. And I think now it's about enabling the engineer to focus on what's important, which is the audio, which is the mix, and letting him forget about managing his console. You can do that before you get to the gig. You have it all managed in advance.
I mean, the other thing, because obviously everybody does their, design and GUI a little bit different.
Yeah.
Is there a sort of thread of continuity? I mean, if you were moving from one of these desks to a different manufacturer to a different manufacturer, is that something that's consciously done as well, or do you try and keep the purity of the GUI that you've got in mind?
It's really interesting because, it's an interesting question because in the analog world, if you were reasonably experienced on any analog desk, you could turn up on another analog desk, and once somebody showed you the basic layout, you would kind of find your way around that. And as digital desks got more complex, people become almost like fans of a brand. So if you're a big fan of Avid and that workflow, you've used the Profile and the D-Show and the SC48 for a long time, then that becomes natural to you. It's almost like playing an instrument, right? If you play the 6-string guitar and you go to a 12-string, you can kind of get there, but you're probably better on a 6-string. So
you might not want to do it live for the first time, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, there's an element of that. But my biggest job on the design team was making things as simple as possible. So, for example, I don't think it could be any simpler than I want to change that EQ, so I touch it, and there's the EQ on my knobs. I want to change that compressor, so there it is. So I see the thing I want to change and I touch it.
So is this essentially the active channel when you've touched that? So that becomes all of the controls for those?
It selects the channel and the parameter, and they're separate over here as well. So I can have an EQ going on over here, or the dynamics. If I want to see just one channel, I touch the top, and now I've got the dynamics for that channel and the dynamics for all of the other channels underneath it.
Right.
And I can just choose which one I want to work on by simply touching it.
And then presumably you could also make these in a standard mode, so that would be sends or whatever they can make them whatever they want.
So the horizontal, each channel is gain, low pass, high pass, pan for every channel, or there's the EQ for every channel. That takes me between frequency and gain. So I've got my four band parametric, then my gate, then my compressor, then my first 4 oxys. So even I can work on a vertical mode, almost analog-y mode, or I can just touch the screen and it takes me directly to a parameter.
So it's that concept of, I guess, is it a fat channel concept? Is that a thing? I mean, that's when you go in a horizontal or a vertical fashion.
Yeah, it's a horizontal. I guess the thing is, I can in a vertical fashion, I have some advantages. I can EQ 2 channels next to each other, for example, which is it's not easy thing to achieve with digital desk. Or I can zoom in. It's about kind of zooming in. So it's about going, here's the overall picture of 8 faders. And now I can zoom in on just one channel, and I can zoom in on the parameter that I want to get closest to.
So the other thing, I mean, obviously, I used to do front of house in a club. You get a lot of changing stuff. You don't necessarily have a band's recall.
Yeah.
Does a desk like this work in that environment as well, where somebody comes in and it's like, right, okay, here's a band. I don't know really what I'm getting until they get here. Let's use it in traditional fashion.
It's exactly that, right? So you walk up to this desk, and before you've done anything, before you've selected anything, you have faders, you have the name, you have the metering, and then you have like line check, gain, low pass, high pass, pan.
Right.
So that's 2/3 of your gig, right?
Yeah.
And then if I'm the house guy, I go to you, oh, by the way, if you want to change the EQ, just touch the EQ you want to change. And now you can change it. If you want to change the gate, just touch the gate that you want to change.
Yeah.
So it's about, I only need to touch one thing to access the parameters. And so one of the mantras that we had when we were designing this desk was, how do I get to a parameter with one touch? Or at most 2. So any parameter anywhere on any input, anywhere on the desk within 2 touches. And if it was ever more than 2 touches, we had to find a new workflow to make that happen.
Well, and it makes sense because I mean, there's the thing, isn't there? It's almost the creative nightmare, isn't it? When you're on stage and they're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and you don't know what the song, and you haven't got your trousers on. You don't want that sort of thing happening when you're in front of a desk.
I get that dream so often, yeah. None of the knobs have any names on them. None of the faders are marked up. You don't know what anything does, and then they'll change. Yeah, I've had that nightmare. That's not a good one. Or being locked outside the game, not being able to get in. I get that one too.
But the whole thing is, I mean, obviously, when you've got the time for pre-production, you can really get macro with this thing.
Yeah,
and then
but you can also program it offline. So there's free software you can program everything I've shown you here today, you can program it on your laptop, sitting on the bus, on the plane, on the way to the gig.
Ah, interesting. So you could tweak a dump of the show from last night and go, I must remember to do that, I'll do it now while I'm on the bus.
Yeah.
Rather
So
than...
I must remember when this fader gets above a certain point, I want this compressor to change. So I can program all that on the bus and then just load that up the next day onto my show file. Or I'm going to a festival and I know there's one of these at front of house. I can download the software, I can name all my channels, I can put my compressors in, my gates in, I can EQ, do a kind of rough EQ. So that when I get to the show, I can assign my VCAs. I get to the show, I just load up my show file and I'm 2/3 of the way there, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm guessing now at festivals, whereas before you might have had a kind of, 48 channel Midas or whatever, so large analog console, you might have one or two of these or one of these and another brand.
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Yeah. I mean, for the last several years, our profile was the de facto front of house board at most, certainly all the UK festivals, So you'd have two profiles, the A and B desks at front of house, and then people would bring in a guest desk of other brands. Yeah, for sure.
And I guess you could just, because if you've got Maddie or whatever it may be, you just hook it up and good to go.
Exactly. And gradually the kind of digital formats are slowly coming together, right? And if not, at least there's some like kind of toolkits to get between one form to another form.
So, do you think, that's the other thing, is when I was listening, I was at the Massive Attack gig that you mixed in Bristol, and I was just sort of quite shocked at the depth and the height and just the scale of the sonic picture.
Yeah.
Is that because, is that down to sample rate now, do you think, and the bit depth, is that where it's...
There's a couple of things about that. One is speakers are so good now, right? It was a very good PA system, really well set up by SSE. And the second thing is, I honestly think this desk, because it has such great preamps, it has really good it's 96K 48-bit floating, so it's a huge dynamic range, and it just seems kind of wider and deeper and higher. So, and I'm a big fan of spreading the audio across the frequency range, right? So I don't want my kick drum and my bass guitar only to do 60 hertz, right? I want them to do all the way up to 200 hertz. So there's a kind of, it's really easy to pick out a safe frequency and just make something thump.
That's an interesting thought. So when you're mixing the record, right? Yeah. You're mixing with a different delivery method.
Sure.
When you're doing the production stuff, presumably you don't. When you're doing the pre-production, do you have a full range PA for checking that? So you will then reappraise the original mix, obviously trying to get as close to possible.
Sure. Actually, normally pre-production, I've got a really good pair of Genelecs 8385 is the new one, and they have incredible dynamic range and very beautiful speakers. So I do most of it on that. It so often translates directly to a large-scale PA. I'll start in the Massive Attack studio with my monitors, and then we'll move to a production rehearsal where we'll have a full PA. It's for me, it's about, and particularly for Massive Attack, there's a lot of detail in the top end. Right? It's a lot of hi-hats and cymbals and little shaky things and bells. And then the bottom end, as we all know, is Massive Attack, right? So the bottom end has the thump, it's proper electronic dance music. So, but it's about spreading it out, and it's about making it dynamic as well, so that it doesn't always have to be really loud. Sometimes it has to go quiet. So, yeah. So the great thing about having a virtual sound check is I can sit with the band. We sit for hours. Me and 3D, the main guy in Massive Attack, we sit for hours behind my desk, just tweaking the show with a virtual sound check. Everything's run to code, so everything stores as we go.
Wow.
So we're producing the live show like you would produce an album.
That's really interesting. And you're mixing it specifically for that live arena as well, which is, it's going to sound different.
Oh, and that's the joy, right? Here's the thing, my colleagues who work in recording studios, they complain, they go, we spend months working on an album, we make it sound as great as we possibly can, and people listen to it on the street, out their phone, right?
Massive Attack doesn't translate so well to the inbuilt speaker on
your iPhone, right? But here's the great thing about mixing live sound, you get to choose how loud it is, within reason. You get to choose the weight between the top end and the bottom end. You get to choose how, the dynamics, and you get to choose the conditions with which people listen to. If you mix an album, you don't get to choose how people listen to it.
That's another interesting thing. Actually, I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit long, but while I've got you, In terms of how you set the system up, how much of it is the system going, how much of it is happening in the stuff that's coming out of the desk, and you go, I want to maybe tilt the front end as a whole forward or back, or however, that whole shaping. Where does that happen?
So it's a team effort nowadays, so the system tech's so important. So on the tour I was using Tony Zabo as my system tech, who's a great experienced guy from Adlib, and he would set up the PA to how he thought it was perfect, and then I would bring my virtual soundcheck in, and then we would start a conversation, we start a dialogue about how the relationship was working between the float stuff and the stacked subs, and we, between us, kind of just tweak that setup, but using the show, not using Steely Dan or something, right? Using last night's show. I'll set the subs up by using the kick drum and the bass guitar. I don't care what the 70s record sounded like, right? So I never use that. I always use the show. So it's always about setting up the PA for the show.
So do you think that's one of the reasons why live sound, hopefully is improving so much, because people can use the material from the show rather than a record which is not mixed for that system?
Totally. I think there's two things that have happened. One is PA speakers have got great. They're so good. I used to mix the Manix on Flashlight, right? Big blue golf balls from Britannia Row, which at the time was cutting edge technology. Listen to it now, it's just shocking. And now you listen to something like, L Acoustics or D&B, and they just sound crystal in comparison.
Do you not miss sometimes the top, the left and right stack, where there was just a little bit of adrenaline introduced by the pain?
Yeah.
But only to a small degree.
Yeah.
Does it kill the adrenaline? I
sometimes say that there was never a more rock and roll speaker than a kind of point source back in the 80s. Like mixing the Manix through some nasty old kind of 2-inch horn and having that guitar kind of cut your face off. It had a kind of joy, and I think we might be a little bit nostalgic about it though.
It wasn't that great.
It wasn't that good. And it's really good now. It's really properly good now. You turn up, most festivals you turn up now, the PA just great. It's like mixing on a hi-fi.
It is. It's interesting though, because quite often you find that you can talk to the person next to you, and some people find that a bit weird. It's like, is it too quiet when there's
unfortunately I'm with you on that one, because a lot of that is health and safety, noise level issues, neighbourhood stuff. Yeah, definitely some of the festivals are too quiet. We did Hyde Park this summer. It was okay, but I could have, I would have had maybe another 2-3 dB if it was available to me, but there was a strict limit, and I respect that. There's neighbours, but I'd like a little bit louder.
Maybe that's what I'm missing. It's just that tiny bit extra where it starts to get, the excitement comes in, because it's impressively.
What about the Bristol show? You were at the Bristol show. Did that feel like it was too quiet? Could you talk to people?
No, because it was very, very deep and it was impressive sounding. So no, I think the support act sounded very quiet.
There was a strict noise limit, right? There was a 98 dBA over 15 minutes noise limit. So it was the same for me and for the support band, so there's no difference. And so it's just about managing it. You've got 15-minute LEQ, you've got to manage your peaks and your troughs.
So you turn it up for a bit and turn it down for a bit, and so it's the average.
You work out the average over 15 minutes. So it might be moments where you're going at 105, but there might be other moments where you pull it back to 95 because something else is happening in the show. So you're actually managing, you have to manage your noise limit as you go.
That's a really does the set get influenced by that dynamic?
No, I wish it did, but no, it doesn't. It's not like, boys, can you just not put the Angel in there because it's going to affect my 15-minute LEQ? No, it doesn't. But I will consciously kind of put some audio level in the bank, so when it gets to like the big tune like Angel or something, it's a big loud one, I've got a little bit money in the bank, to work with.
And is there do you get like a readout somewhere that's sort of with the clock and the
sure.
The warning light?
Yeah. So there's always a display that's telling me what my current level is, how I'm looking over my 15-minute LEQ, and what my limit is. So I'm watching that and managing that as I go. Yeah. At
the same time as mixing the sheet. So no wonder you want something that when you push a fader, you could just kind of have full things happening at once. Right?
I want to be thinking about those kind of things. I don't want to be thinking about where's my snare drum. I can't remember what layer it's on. I need to be all of that done, you know.
Rob, thank you so much. It's been fascinating.
Okay, good to see you again.